Hey guys, Rudy Campos here, coming to you from another or for another episode of Grading the Market, the new Sweep the League podcast we got going, talking about collectibles and helping you get your collectibles in order. Which guys should you collect? Which guys are up and coming? Which guys you may want to pass on for now? We got a lot of questions we're going to get answered for all you guys up there. It's going to be autographed, it's going to be collectibles, it's going to be trading cards, it's going to be everything that we can think of. That's why this show is going to continue to grow for you guys over on the Sweep the League network. Go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Grading the Market. What are we talking about today? So PSA delays is going to be the main topic today. You know, you send that card in. I just recently got a PSA submission back, which was one card. It took roughly close to 45 days to get. I went through GameStop, which I have no problems now after this one card. First time I ever did it, didn't have any issues, so I may try it again. But there are delays. We're going to get those delays information from our co-host today, which is going to be Matt Schillen. It's at MJ Schillen on Twitter or X or whatever the kids are calling it today. He's going to be joining us in a second. And after that, question, because man, you saw the Vikings go down bad to the Rams, and then you saw, does Sam Darnold get that payday? Well, teams are going to pay him. But what does that do to JJ McCarthy? We're going to ask that question here at the end of the show. Not waste any more time. Again, this is Grading the Market. Let's bring him on here, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Matt Schillen himself. Matt, welcome back to Grading the Market here on Sweep the League, man.
Appreciate you guys having me back today. Looking forward to talking about what's going on over at PSA and also touching on that Vikings bit toward the end of the show. So jumping right in. I mean, it was a fun-filled weekend. Lots of really good NFL playoff games. But one of the things that kicked this week off was the news at a PSA and how the market is approaching and really handling the delays that are going on over there. Right. They recently announced that delays in their receiving process have caused a stir, and they've caused a stir among collectors, among message boards, among Facebook, amongst Twitter, X, as you mentioned, whatever the kids are calling it these days, right? Which has led to some consideration of potentially alternative methods of grading, other grading companies that are out there, right? There's questions around PSA's ability to meet the continued demand, right? Is this just a hiccup in the marketplace as things continue to grow? I mean, last year, the grading companies combined for an absolutely incredible 20 million cards that were graded across the board. Jeez. That number is astronomical. However, that number also raises a fair amount of questions. Specifically, PSA's recent announcement about these delays in their receiving process. They've been a big topic, right? What's going on? What should we expect? Should we add a potential factor into the different tiers that they offer collectors like you, like me, right? Is GameStop the answer for some sort of centralized hub and or retail store for us to go into and submit? We know the process can always be frustrating. There's never an overarching accuracy to the emails, right? There's always a 12-hour, 24-hour, sometimes even a 5-day delay in those parts of the process. Although PSA has been pretty transparent with its customers, the hobby collective as a whole, in terms of what's going on from sort of a state of the market perspective, right? They're always ending things with terms like "don't worry," "rest assured," so on and so forth. Yeah. But one thing that we have to keep a close eye on is, hey, the major players, the SGCs, the BGSs, and the PSAs of the world, what's going to happen when their capacity is essentially filled to the brim, right? Is this something we're going to expect going forward? Do they need to adopt further technology? Do they need to hire more and build additional locations, right? That sort of organic growth adoption that companies like Amazon, for example, have sort of, popped up warehouses left, right, and center. Is that something that these companies are going to have to consider and expand outside the markets in which they're comfortable operating in, right? There's a lot of big questions. There's a lot of hobby related questions, right? And there's also a lot of collector related questions, because there's probably 99% of our audience isn't necessarily directly in the know to what's going on. And we aren't either, but we're, sometimes on the front end of these things and can have a contact who has a contact who has a contact that can give us some insight into how these companies plan on, moving forward through 2025. As, I mentioned earlier, 20 million cards that were graded in 2024. I expect that number to jump considerably with the, not just with the growth of names like Paul Skeens and Victor Wembanyama, but names like LeBron, Kobe, the legends, the generational talents we all know and love and, sort of anchor our collections around, right? There's folks that are coming out of the woodwork to now heavily grade a lot of their, 80s and 90s and even early 2000s cards that were once perceived as junk era cards are starting to reemerge. So that 20 million graded card number could easily jump by 30-35%. The big question is, how do these grading companies handle that?
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned junk, the junk wax era. And I made a comment to a dealer one time at a recent show, maybe about 4 months ago. And this was after the fact that I went through a lot of my junk boxes, junk wax boxes, and I was throwing cards away because they were bent. They weren't really doing good. And I started to look. I had a couple of cards like, man, this is a good card. I kept it. But majority of them I got rid of. And I started to realize something here. What we consider junk wax era, if you probably stop and think about it, a lot of those stars back in the day, going into Jordan, Robinson, Magic, and these guys, getting them graded and they come back at a decent 7, 8, 9. I consider those decent for that era. Yeah. You can still get not a premium for them, but you're still going to be able to get a good amount for that junk wax. And that's what I tell people. Everybody threw away the junk wax, cards. Even I did. I'm not going to be opposed. I'm not. I did. So now those cards are becoming scarce, and that kind of add a little bit of value, in my opinion, to it.
That's 100% correct, right? You're going to get, and it's funny because the big men, right, the David Robinsons, the Tim Duncans of that era, don't necessarily garner the premiums of the guards and the forwards. However, I remember 5-6 years ago, I was picking up Tim Duncan raw rookies for under $1. Like, is an absolute. I'm like, there's something. There's just a market anomaly here, and I think that the fact that I loaded up on those, the fact that I loaded up on, $10, kind of that category of $10 to $100 inserts and rookies and raw forms of even Kobe, right? They were still mass produced for that era. But like you said, a PSA 7, 8, 9, BGS 7.5, 8, upwards of those cards, you're still going to get somebody that's going to buy them. There's a market for those, and there's a market of decent money to be made. Now, are you going to get the $660,000 that the pristine BGS 10 Ultimate Collection 0304 LeBron rookie autograph went for at Golden? No, you're not. But you could say to yourself, hey, I've got 20 Tim Duncans from whatever set, whether it be hoops, upper deck, tops, and then get those graded. They come back because they've been in, top loaders for so long, and the condition really hasn't worn much. So you're looking at 8s, you're looking at potentially 9s, and maybe there's a 10 or 2 in there, and your ROI is all of a sudden going from junk wax to a mini vacation. Like that's not unreasonable either, right? You once had a 50-cent $1.50 card in raw form. It comes back PSA 10 and you're going, oh, okay, that's, 50, 60, 70 bucks. Now multiply that out by, 10 or 15 of those. You're not doing so bad for yourself.
No, you're not. And that's the thing with the junk wax part is that now when I find stuff, because I do have some boxes still, I tend to hold on to that junk wax a little longer to go through it because I'm like, wait a minute, I threw away a whole bunch of stuff that could have been valuable. And I mean, not like hundreds of thousands of value, but the $20, $30, $40 cards that, are after they're graded are probably worth it. Talking to Matt Schillen. Again, you guys want to go to www.sa.com/collectibles. You can get all the information for Matt and the guys over there. Do a fantastic job. Write a lot of articles. We're going to be doing, again, grading the market here at Sweep the League. Going to hopefully be a weekly show for you guys. Jacob Eric Canziano is going to also be a host for grading the market. So a lot of content coming out from all different perspectives here. Talking about PSA and the delays. Now, the biggest question is, when you and I, and even still to these days, when you think about grading, you're thinking about the big boys. PSA, you're talking about, Beckett. Those are the two big boys right now. Beckett took a pretty big hit, and I've seen that. They took a huge hit.
I think it sure did.
Everything. Now you've got like DCI is always at a lot of shows, and you've got these other companies. I believe SGGC is another one. So this comes to the question of, if I want to grade, but not with Beckett, I know PSA is going to probably give me a better grade, but you know what? For PSA 9, I can get that DCI 10. Where do values fall into place? Because now you're talking multiple grading, companies, and will there ever be a prospect that comes up and says we're better than PSA? I mean, the market's going to generate value. We'll put it that way.
The market's always going to generate value, right? There's always going to be if you look at the grading marketplace from a macro perspective, right? You take everybody that's in the marketplace. Your PSAs and your BGSs are first and foremost always going to be your anchors, right? PSA may have some hiccups in the first quarter with delays. They'll find it. They'll correct themselves. I don't think there's any lack of confidence there. It's just more of a sense of collectors becoming less and less patient with the process. All right. So that's not necessarily a, 3 strikes down the middle kind of situation for PSA.
Yeah.
BGS and Beckett, a little bit of a different situation where the hobby is not only losing patience, it's losing confidence and fast. There's a lot to do in sort of the behind the scenes, back office, private equity acquisition, parent company nonsense that's going on, to where, hey, there's even some questionable activity. I don't want to go so far as to put a label on that activity because I don't know enough to do that. Yeah. What I do know is it's not exactly the most warm and fuzzy activity. It's not exactly the most welcoming activity from a collector's perspective, because now, there's potential for liability there with the way cards are being graded, or not for that matter, or what the upper management may and how it may be engaged in. But there's potential for what I know for a fact is that there is potential for the BGS grading entity itself to either be acquired in whole or in part by a private equity, or it has been already, and they may be restructuring that. I know previously there were a lot of rumors and discussions about how, quote unquote, top heavy the administrative and executive aspects of that infrastructure was. How that directly trickled down into grading and the quality of grading, I don't really know, and I don't think it had as much as an impact as collectors would like to think, right? Because the second they throw something under the bus, they think everything's going to come back at zero, and that's just not true. But at the end of the day, PSA and BGS are still your anchors in the marketplace. Now, for a little while there was that HGC company, I believe, HGA.
Yeah, HGA.
They were there for a while. They were doing those color match slabs. So if you had like a Miami Dolphins card, whether it was Tua or Tyreek, the top of the slab would kind of match the jersey. It was a cool concept. I know there was a little tech involved there. There was a little AI involved there, but then, there was also the question of operating capital. And I think that kind of fell by the wayside. You don't really hear too much about them anymore. You also don't hear what you do hear. Let me correct myself for a second there. What you do hear is SGC is probably the emerging number 3, potentially even number 2, if it looks to make, somewhat of a move in dethroning BGS. Full disclosure, I was a BGS guy probably for a good portion of my collecting career up until, 32, 33. I hadn't submitted my first PSA submission until 2017. So, I was a hard-nosed BGS guy. Went to PSA, wasn't unhappy with the grades. There were 9s and 10s in there. Never submitted anything to SGC. A lot of guys will tell you that their value is starting to hold. I personally think it's still a little under. If it was a PSA 10 versus an SGC 10, nothing's going to hold the value as high as a BGS 10 pristine black label, because that's standard and the exceptional gold standard. But I think that Some of the smaller companies, if they go about it right and they build their reputations just as any other small to mid-sized business would, I think there's an opportunity for them to become players in the market. I don't necessarily know how the value holds, because for me, in order for the value to hold, I think that company needs to establish a reputation, and a solid one at that, being operable for 3 to 5 years, and probably taking a good 5 to 6% of the marketplace. So I can't really speak to any of the smaller companies. I know I've heard names just as every other collector has, but I think that at the end of the day, some guys are going to emerge for the better. They're gonna win some fans over, take some market share away, which is cool. And others, some of them just don't have what it takes to hang.
Yeah, it's funny because me and a couple of buddies were working on not necessarily a grading system type thing, but we've been kind of working on I can show you real quick here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're buying the slabs basically. And as you can tell here, I've got an Alvin Robertson autograph, and we're just going to try to do custom slabs because, I mean, necessarily a lot of people love the grade and it holds value, but I also want to do the slab part as far as the memorabilia type thing. So there's different ways of doing that, and it's crazy because these slabs are available and they have been for a while, but that's kind of where you start to see these grading companies kind of form up at. You get guys like, what, PSA is taking forever, we can have a turnaround. There's the DCI who I mentioned, when they do shows in San Antonio, the bigger shows, you can get slab grade same day, and it's like $20. So yeah, I mean, there's guys that take the the very quick path, there's guys that take the long path to PSA. And you mentioned earlier, and what I love about it, because this is going to be a whole nother show on a whole nother topic, but you talk about centralized hubs. GameStop's going to be one now. They are one with PSA. Take your stuff there. You pay, if you're a pro member, you don't pay shipping, so you're paying $15 per card. They ship it out, they do all the work for you, hands down. There's going to be skepticism there. There's going to be people that, kind of get screwed. Something's going to happen. It's the nature of the beast. But the other subject I wanted to talk about on another show is the whole eBay thing, because I've always felt eBay has to have a centralized area where a lot of stuff is confirmed. But we'll get into that later. As far as PSA goes and BGS and Beckett and everything, the central location, you're right. They've got to have multiple hubs. And this is where I started thinking, well, if I'm PSA, I would probably make a move at DCI, at some of these players, because they're in Dallas. So if you're making a move in PSA, hey, you know what, DCI, love what you do. Let's talk numbers here, because now you've got the entire Central America going to Dallas instead of going to California. Going to Dallas. You can get an Eastern subdivision out there to where you can get all that worked out. How much time do you think that would save if that happens? And do you think quality would be affected by it?
So, there's a lot of good questions there. I think that if the folks and the executive teams at PSA are watching this, and hopefully they are,
hopefully,
right? They take this into consideration, because I think that's where the moves lie, right? As is the case with any market industry, not just cards and collecting, but you look at business, right? Whether it's a emerging pharma, emerging energy, emerging tech, right? These companies are looking to grow by acquisition. They're looking to land and expand their footprint, and the same is applicable for the organic growth model at PSA. You want to look at a DCI. Hey, I'd have VPs and reps fly out within the next few days, meet with their executive team and say, hey, is your business plan going forward legit? Right? B, is this something you would want to undertake? Meaning, hey, we're one of the two corporate behemoths in this space. We like what you do. There's a potential for us to partner and or acquire. And would you be willing to put, your team of graders and hobby experts and collecting experts and so on, to them come out to our headquarters for 2 or 3 weeks and get trained up on this? And then, sort of in return, what we'll do is we'll send a couple executives to help you get up and running once we, acquire the assets. Now, I know that's me, talking transactional match shilling, not collectibles match shilling, but this is the stuff that I do outside of collectibles, right? I assess transactions, and, this is something that, the guys at PSA may want to consider. whether it's DCI, whether it's one of the other smaller, grading companies that are out there. What's their success look like? What does success mean to them? And hey, at the end of the day, everybody's got an exit strategy. So, somebody somewhere at PSA should be listening closely to us, because we're giving them some really good advice here. But I think at the end of the day, that's also going to alleviate those headaches that collectors are experiencing with delays, with tie-ups, losing that patience with a major player, but them going, hey, we're going through a transition right now this quarter. This is going to get better, and this is how it's going to get better. And I know PSA has, over the years, leveraged transparency to its benefit. And I think they still do it now, coming out on top of this, even though it's going to take some time for them to meet the demand of the marketplace. So, I think a growth by acquisition strategy is going to be key for them. I know it's absolutely got to be in the cards for BGS from a number of perspectives, and that's a whole nother show. But we're talking about PSA, we're talking about delays, and we're coming up with resolutions for them. So, like I said, hopefully somebody out there in listener land is paying attention to what we're preaching here.
Oh yeah, it's got to be either PSA or Beckett. I mean, one of those two have to make that move. Now, you look at the little bits and pieces, and I go back to DCI because that's the most experience I've got here locally. And to get the same day slab, same day everything at a card show, I mean, they do get overloaded with stuff, and they do get them out.
As does everybody. But,
yeah,
you have to meet the market demand. You have to be able to do that, and you have to be able to model that and forecast what that demand looks like. Now, maybe DCI wasn't expecting that sort of uptick in on-premise grading. And PSA, I don't think was really expecting it either. The last couple of nationals that they've been at, they've had higher than expected volume. That 2024 macro number of 20 million cards graded in the marketplace, and I think that's going to be 30% higher this year. Certainly creates a ton of opportunity for the small, the mid, and even the larger players. But I think at the end of the day, somebody's got to consider at least one, if not multiple acquisitions.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because if PSA, we're talking PSA, so and we're talking with Matt Chillen again, collectibles, si.com/collectibles. You want to go there, get all the article information there. It says grading the market, talking about PSA specifically. And again, shout out to PSA because, if you're thinking about it, getting those centralized hubs, getting, one in the central, one in the East Coast, you can do multiples around. Not only does that lead to quicker times because, hey, I'm shipping from San Antonio to Dallas and, you're able to get my cards quicker. The turnaround time is great. It also adds to employees towards the company where what happens now, you go to the bigger Dallas card shows and you're able to provide same day service there at a premium. I mean, you're charging $15 to get the grade. Hey, you know what? I'm going to Dallas card show. I've got this Jordan I really want graded. I need it graded today. No problem. We've got everybody here. You can do this here. You know what? It's going to be a $35 premium charge. You're going to pay $35, maybe $40 just to get that card graded on site. Also, the other type of thing to offer for PSA as well. Go to a card show. You've got multiple locations. Just go set up. Hey, you know what? I got this Mike Piazza rookie here. Do you think I should get graded? Well, for the evaluation, it's $5. I would pay $5 to get that evaluation. Say, you know what? Just by the looks of it, you're looking at possibly 8, 9 right here. So I definitely would grade it. That 5 turns into I want same day service. That's 40. You made $45 in just a matter of a couple of minutes.
Right.
That's the thing we got to think about too with PSA. I need a job. Matt, we all need jobs here at PSA. We got to be on the marketing squad.
Listen, I mean, I think the insight as seasoned collectors we bring to a PSA is probably invaluable information, right? They've got the ear to the ground. They've got a good, perspective on things. They've always had a solid reputation. This is just, like I said, they're at the end of the day, they're really, really good with the transparency and the messaging. I think though they need to implore just a little bit of a more enhanced strategy for them to meet that demand, as we've talked about, right? Possible growth by acquisition, possible spreading out across key shows or adding staff as they have been, and they've been doing, fairly well. I think that expansion includes going north to Canada for a bit. And I think that also includes hiring across a number of key markets for them, which are 2 steps in the right direction, even though I still think they need to take a couple more to meet that demand and to meet that growth estimate I've kind of touched on a few times throughout today's show. But like I said, at the end of the day, right, the market intelligence you get from the guys that are on the ground is completely invaluable, not just to a PSA, but to Tops, to Panini from different perspectives, right? You've got to listen to what the markets are saying in the way that the markets are saying them. And like I said earlier, right, when I went around on sort of a tangent in terms of, actual corporate asset acquisitions and what I do outside of the hobby, those are things that we do on the daily too. Our ears are to the ground. We're, checking our sources. We're leveraging our resources out there to grow, to continue to grow so that our customer base is happy.
Yeah. You're right. And the whole thing with PSA is, the market can be theirs, and it's the same for Beckett. The market can be theirs. Let's be real. The stronghold on the market is not going away. It's definitely not going away. You're predicting a 30% increase on grading coming off of a year where 20 million cards were graded. Do the simple math. If you charge base $15 for the grade, I mean, that's $300 million, just in that alone. So, and we know it's not always $15.
Right. And on the upside, that's closer to $500 million.
Yeah.
So, these are big boy numbers. And this is where, a lot of the different perspective and aspects of the marketplace come into play. Because I know some of the rushes at PSA based on card valuations are sometimes hundreds of dollars to grade. So that's, those are things you have to consider too. So, like I said, I think this is a good awareness piece I put out. I think it's definitely positive for PSA, how they're going to gear up, how they're going to, tackle their addressable market with, in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, Matt Schillen on Twitter, or as the kids call it, X, at MJ Schillen. Go follow him now. We're talking PSA. This is Grading the Market, part of the Sweep the League family. And we're giving you all the details on PSA. Just expect delays right now. It'll get better. They're going to have to obviously hire more people. They're going to have to make some changes. But you know what? Good things don't come very easily and very fast. It takes a little bit of time. So once you submit, definitely just be patient. Again, I used GameStop. I'm a firm user or a believer right now of GameStop. I actually enjoyed the experience. They kept in contact with me. They emailed me, hey, your card has been received by PSA. Hey, we have shipped your card. And it even gives you, the grade if you really want to see it, or if you want to be surprised, don't click the link. Then right. GameStop will issue an email saying, hey, your card has arrived. You can come pick it up. So I enjoyed the process. Shout out to GameStop. That was a very good thing right there. Talking to Matt Schillen again. See at the bottom, it's scrolling www.si.com/collectibles. You can get all the articles there from Matt and the boys over at SI Collectibles. And we got one last thing, man, because this past weekend, dang, the Vikings. How you're a 14-win team and you choke it in the first round of the playoffs against the Rams. You know what? The Rams have been undervalued all year. I think I had them as one of the best teams in the NFC before the season started. Very undervalued team. But talking about Sam Darnold now, Sam Darnold coming off an MVP caliber season. I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat it. Definitely top 4, maybe 5 at the worst MVP. Darnold's cards went up. When I would go to shows, I would see his PSAs go up in rookies, and you were paying a pretty decent penny for a Sam Darnold card this year. But now with that struggle, no idea if Sam stays with the Vikings. Personally, after talking to Derek Irvin, we were talking about it last night. We both feel that it's probably in the best for the Vikings to bring him back. I mean, you definitely want to give that bridge to JJ. And you know what? If anything, Sam is a terrific backup for the Vikings. But now, can we expect that rise of JJ McCarthy cards? This was actually an article written by one of you guys there, and Brandon Velasky. Mm-hmm. And that's the question, because now you're going to see people go after JJ McCarthy cards with that Darnold performance, when I'm going to tell everybody a secret. You probably should have started getting him when Darnold was starting. But I'm just saying that for a little bit, Matt. What do you got on Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy?
So, being a diehard New York Jets fan, Sammy Boy started in our organization. We drafted him. He had a decent run in Carolina. He found himself a new home this season in Minnesota. I think that Sam Darnold is the epitome of the seasoned veteran NFL backup quarterback, right? He's not going to get the glitz and the glamour career-wise as your Mahomes or your Josh Allen's. His spike has probably tapered off, if not dropped a little bit since the peak. I don't think Minnesota's downfall was just in that wild card game. They were a little shaky in the last game of the season. There's no doubt about that. I don't think everybody was entirely in sync. I think there were some injuries spread around there.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the start of the 24 NFL season, Sam Darnold's value was in one place. It's certainly higher and will sustainably be higher than that point. That's probably the lowest point that you would probably be able to buy anything Sam Darnold related.
Yeah.
Now that the Vikings are out of the playoffs, they had a dismal week 18. They had a pretty dismal playoff performance. Value is going to drop probably, 10, maybe 20% of its value from where it stands. I think JJ McCarthy is also trading at a little bit of a discount to where his card should be right now, given the full season injury. Might be time to pick some of those up. But that said, I don't necessarily know if JJ is that guy because he hasn't proven himself yet. So cautious investment to be made. I think there's value to be had there. We're going to, see what the Vikings decide to do in the off season. Does Darnold remain a Viking? Does he get money from a, perennial second tier team? Do the Jets even reconsider him? Because we know that their quarterback situation is up in the air with Rodgers and such. Do the Giants consider him because they just don't have a quarterback? Sorry for the knock, Tommy Cutlets, but I got to do what I got to do. Where does Sam Darnold land? I think we're going to get a better idea of where and who that might be during and if not at the end of the NFL draft. I think he could be very well involved in a move or he stands pat. It's going to be up to the Vikings to decide what they're going to do. If they're going to remain all in on JJ McCarthy, rookie injuries in the NFL don't really play out that well. So I don't want to say that JJ McCarthy's done because I think the kid's got some, super tremendous upside. And I wish him the best. But we're going to have to see how he emerges come the 25 season.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy to see where he actually goes. And like I said, I kind of mentioned, I think he's going to end up staying with the Vikings. I think they will retain him, but you mentioned quarterbacks. So, real quick, we've got, Sam Darnold probably on the move. If possibly they don't resign him there. You've also got guys like Kirk Cousins who might be on the move as well. You got free agents and Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. One guy to keep an eye on, and we're gonna end this show on the note here is it doesn't look like it, but I will say there's gonna be a quarterback controversy in New England. So you may want to go get those Joe Milton cards if you haven't gotten them now. I picked up a few recently. I will say that there might be a little quarterback controversy. I think Drake May obviously will probably come out on top, being that he's a high draft pick, but Milton might get an opportunity somewhere else. So I'm gonna leave everybody on that. You got any last thoughts for everybody out there?
I do. I think Mike Vrabel is going to fit right into the New England dichotomy. I think he's going to do really, really well for that organization's chemistry. However, I don't necessarily know or have a pick on who New England's quarterback's going to be come, regular season week 1 of 25.
Yeah.
I think my one thing that I will end the show on is that for the first time in probably since the mid 90s, if not earlier, you're going to see one of the most active quarterback carousels in NFL history, beginning with free agency the first day after the Super Bowl. The draft is going to have a flurry, and there's going to be a lot of trades and a lot of player impacted trades in and around, draft weekend there. So I think that we're going to see a lot of moves. There's a lot of notable names come free agency. There's a lot of notable quarterback names come free agency. It's not only about Drake May, it's also about Aaron Rodgers. It's about, what types of moves, where 4 or 5 GMs are going to land, 4 or 5 head coaches are going to land. right? There's a lot of working parts to this that I still don't think we have enough information to say, oh, he's absolutely going to start for this team, or he is 1000% Vrabel's pick in New England, or the unnamed coach in the Jets. Who's his starter going to be, right? What's going on the West Coast? Still think it's a little too early to tell, but the activity beginning with day one following the Super Bowl is going to be record breaking this year.
100%, man. You know what's even record breaking is that this show's going to go on forever here at Grading the Market, because we're going to break all the records when it comes to Matt and I. Also, don't forget Jacob Eric Canziano is going to be running Grading the Market as well from his side. We're giving you two perspectives. It's going to be our side, it's going to be his side. We may even join together for a show here pretty soon, but nonetheless, you're getting all the content when it comes to sports collectibles. PSA was the subject today. JJ McCarthy, go get those cards. There's a card show, I believe, this weekend or next. So go get those McCarthy cards as soon as you can. And also, like I mentioned, Joe Milton is another guy you may want to look at. I'm really high on Spencer Rattler. I started grabbing a lot of his stuff early. So there's a lot of guys you want to go collect in the football world, and we're going to talk about that a whole lot more. We've got more shows coming up. We're going to be talking hopefully soon about MJ's Mansion. For those of you guys out there that DM'd me, I'm willing to put at least $150 into the pot. So we can try to buy something in there. I can put a little bit more if I can get the wife to open up the bank account, but we're going to talk about that. We've also got a lot of other stuff to talk about. You got another LeBron rookie that was recently graded. It was sold off at auction at gold. And there's just a whole lot going on in the sports collectible world. So all you got to do is go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss another episode of Grading the Market. So for Matt Schilling, it's Rudy Campos. Hey, what's your grade on the market? Let us know when the show airs. Again, just an FYI, this show is recorded for right now. So if you're leaving comments, we apologize, but we'll get to your comments as soon as we can. So again, for Matt Schilling, Rudy Campos Jr., until we grade the market again, we'll see you later, knuckleheads.
See you guys later.